Baseball is back, and we want to celebrate by slashing the cost of any daily picks packages. That includes a baseball play by 50%, including 5% best bets. This amazing promotion runs from Thursday, April 7th, when 18 of the 30 MLB teams take part in opening day, to midnight on Wednesday, April 13th, and you can get $25 daily packages for $12.50, $29 daily combo packages for $14.50, $35 5% best bets for $17.50, and $39 5% best bet combo packages for $19.50. Whether you never bet on MLB or just like discounts, save 50% on baseball picks for the entire first week of the baseball regular season.
Welcome into First Pitch. I am Drew Martin, joined today by Adam Trigger and Tony Finn of WagerTalk.com, and we are previewing the National League here from a betting perspective. So we're going to go East Division, Central Division, West Division, get everybody's thoughts on, hey, what you should bet, what you shouldn't bet. Welcome in on the chat box on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. If you're watching on replay, feel free to reply below. Let us know what you agree with, where you disagree with us. All is welcome. Let's go around the horn here. Adam Trigger at Top Flight SI on Twitter. Welcome in. Adam, how you feeling, buddy?
Feel great, Drew. I've already been watching baseball, well, I guess live baseball for a week, in addition to some spring training games with the Korean League starting. Been waiting for, we had to wait an extra week for Major League Baseball, but it's finally here. Getting underway tomorrow. Can't wait.
Yeah, can't wait either. Opening day tomorrow. Some referring to him as Korean Adam because he's already off to a start in the KBO. And another guy here, Tony Finn from WagerTalk.com. Some refer to him as Tijuana Tony, but he knows his MLB. Tony, welcome in, buddy.
Thank you very much. Excited for baseball. To be honest, transparent, I never thought we would be seeing the start of the Major League season until probably end of April or May. So this is good. This is great. Good stuff.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise for sure. A shortened spring training, which, could affect some of these games, especially early on, but we'll get into that as the show goes. So, Adam, wanted to start off here in the East Division. We got futures here with the Braves, plus 120, Mets, plus 225, Phillies, plus 300. So the three top teams there, not a whole lot of separation. There is a step down to the Marlins at plus 1,500, and then the Nationals, real long shot there at 50-1 to win the division. Adam, I'll throw it over to you. Just kind of thoughts here on the National League East.
Yeah, I'll go team by team, and I'll start at the top with the Atlanta Braves. Drew, it's not really my style to go back to a team that just won the whole thing. Usually you're not going to find value there, but I beg to differ this year. I think the Braves could be better than they were last year. Remember Acuna goes down in the middle of the season. Mike Soroka never even pitched, and you lose Freddie Freeman, but you get Matt Olson. I don't think the Soler loss is huge. I think he just got hot at the right time. Obviously, Acuna's back, and at some point, you're going to get Soroka back in that rotation. Ian Anderson and Max Fried are as good of a 1-2 as you're going to find, in my opinion. So I looked at the season win total for the Braves, 90.5. It seems low. I have the Braves winning in the but even at 5-1. I think that there's some value there. And what it comes down to for me is I still have the Braves rated ahead of the Mets and the Phillies. We'll move on to the Mets. Now, in the Mets, we obviously know it's no secret they spent a ton of money in the offseason. And I think most of their improvements are good. I'm not really that worried about the two injuries early on. I mean, Scherzer, he's probably going to pitch. DeGrom's out for a little bit. But I still think this Mets team is improved. And there might actually be a little value on them because of the perception that maybe they're in trouble with those, two injuries in particular. But they made a lot of good improvements throughout their roster, where I definitely think they're going to be the Braves' main competition this year. A lot of people high on the Phillies. They did shore up their bullpen. They got way worse defensively if they're going to have Schwarber and Castellanos out there. But Phillies will be in the mix. I still have them a step down from the Braves and the Mets. And the team I really like in this division, Drew, and this is something I'm going to reference throughout our preview, I like to bet plus 1.5 in Major League Baseball when I can find a really good spot. And So I'm going to reference teams that were really good against the run line last year as a potential for, maybe there's something to them taking a step forward this year. One of those teams was the Miami Marlins. They were 67-95 last year, but they were actually 82-79 against either the -1.5 or +1.5, mostly +1.5 for the Marlins last year. They get Jacob Stallings from Pittsburgh, who I love. I think he makes the pitching staff better. Drew, you bet Sandy Alcantara to win the Cy Young last year. It obviously missed. I don't think Don Mattingly did him any favors leaving him out there too long in a lot of scenarios. Now this year, he's going to be a dark horse to potentially win that award again. So I think, at 25-1, it'd probably be a good bet for you to make again. But I think the Marlins could potentially be the surprise in this division. And then you got the Washington Nationals at the bottom. They're awful, terrible pitching. Outside of Juan Soto, they really don't have much in their lineup. So I expect them to finish in the basement in the NL East once again.
Yeah, it's always a tough bet going up there with the basement. And you bring up Sandy Alcantara or Alcantara, however you want to pronounce it. I was thinking about that because he did put together a great season, Trig. But when you're betting one of those like futures to win the Cy Young, you kind of need to correlate that with the team being really good. Because I noticed, like, even though he was out there, maybe top 5 in some categories, top 10 in others, people were talking about other pitchers on good teams way more than him. And that's what I figured for these kind of voting futures. You kind of want to correlate it with better teams. So that's one thing that, hey, I decided to keep the 100 in my pocket and not bet it when we were out in Vegas. I guess I still got another day or so to put it in, though.
Yeah, I don't disagree there, Drew. It can. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just that's fine. But Tony, want to get you in here on the NL East talk, man. We got Braves 88-73 last year, winning the division. Of course, going on in the playoffs to win the World Series. They're here at the top of the division with the +120. I think we saw it, and then of course followed there by the Mets and the Phillies. What are your overall thoughts here on the NL East, Tony?
Well, as far as the Braves go, I think, as far as surprises go, I heard the word surprise when you and Trig were talking about this division. There can't possibly be more surprises this year in this division than there were last year. I mean, some of the things that happened last year were beyond. They're just not approachable this year. Atlanta Braves, starting with the Braves, the fact that they essentially rebuilt their lineup or reinvented themselves from month to month to month, found their way into the postseason and found their way to earning the Fall Classic trophy, which is it was a surprise, right? It's a surprise for me. I don't know if it surprised anybody else, but the Dodgers were the best team in baseball. They had some issues with having key players in positions to be healthy and fresh when it came to World Series time, especially the pitching staff. But that said, I agree. The Braves are probably the team to beat. I'm not a huge fan of this division. I'm not a huge fan of putting my money on the Braves because I'm not a believer in Kelly. I don't think Kenley Jansen improves this bullpen that much. Now, some will say, Tony, the bullpen was horrible. He can't help but improve it. Maybe that's true. Key additions of Matt Olson are big. Is Matt Olson, can he replace, a Freddie Freeman, not only at the plate, but in the dugout, in the clubhouse? I think Soler is a guy that really, I think, is going to excel this year. I mean, I thought that was a great trade they made with Kansas City to get him for the postseason, and he definitely did. He added his 2 cents, and his 2 cents put them over the top, I think, in many, many games, definitely overall. I wanted to like the Mets. I want to believe that, that Cohen's going to, spending money after dollar after dollar after dollar. And then what this week we hear the news on DeGrom. He's probably going to be out multiple months with that shoulder injury. Now Max Scherzer's got to carry that. He's got to carry that load in the pen or in the rotation, because I'm also not a huge believer in Chris Bassett. Is Bassett enough and Scherzer enough to overcome losing DeGrom in this division? It's very possible. And who knows what Cohen's going to come up with at some point in time to surprise us again. But Starling Marte is not a good defensive center fielder. This this team is not a good defensive team, especially in the outfield. In my opinion, I've heard people they've brought arguments to me. I'm just not a believer that you can be Steinbrenner and buy a championship. Now, people would also say, Tony, well, look what the Dodgers are doing. They've done a good job of that as well. The Phillies, the Phillies games are going to be closer. Their bullpen is going to have to be better than it was, better than it's been. They're going to have to play better away from home to compete in this division. 82 and 80 last year. The additions of Castellanos and Schwarber, the loss of McCutchen. Many will say McCutchen isn't a loss. I still think McCutchen brought a lot to this team, he had a lot of big hits. Listen, he surprised me last year. As far as the fantasy aspect of this goes, I think he was a big plus for somebody who took a gamble on him. And this team's probably going to be who the Phillies have been. And the Nationals, their future. I mean, they're 65 and 97 last year. Was that who they're going to be again this year? I have to say that I believe they are. I mean, unless Juan Soto, it can bat 1 through 9. I think that's what you're going to have. This trading Scherzer, Trey Turner, Schwarber last season, I think that was pretty much a strong signal to all of us who pay attention that they're not intending on doing anything more than rebuilding this year. And I think you'll see some more moves. And when I mentioned Solar with Atlanta, I mean, the fact that Solar is no longer in Atlanta was what I wanted to talk about, and that the Miami Marlins added him. The Wendell, the Stallings, the Garcia is missing Jeter as the chief executive going to affect how this team plays or how this team builds as the season goes along. That time will tell. I really don't have the answers to that, but I think Solar will improve this team. I think he'll thrive in the middle of this team's batting order. I really do. And in long, I think Atlanta still right now with the injury to DeGrom makes them a team to beat here. And I can't imagine playing a future. If I was going to play a future on anybody other than Atlanta in this division, it would probably be, surprisingly, it would be Philadelphia because of some of the potential. I think they have some upside. And I think there's some players there that could surprise as opposed to what we expect from players on the Braves and the Mets.
Good stuff, Tony. I like the breakdown there from Tony Finn. Guys, Tony Finn's #1 MLB profit leader at WagerTalk all time. He's also up over 63% ROI, return on investment, since July of last year. So check out Tony Finn at WagerTalk.com. And Tony, let's move on here to the NL Central. We'll come back to you, tee it up for you. We got the Brewers -180 to win the division. Of course, you're having to lay 180 to win 100. Cardinals +225, so that changes on the other side. Risk 100 to win 225. Then we get a little step down here. Cubs, Reds, Pirates. Cubs and Reds, long shots. Pirates, man, you're swinging for the fences there. 70-1 to win the division. What are we thinking here, Tony? I just saw personally the Cardinals play in spring training. They look pretty good. What's that pitcher? Mikolas, he was rocking a stash. He was 5 innings in, one run ball, so he looked ready to go. Cubs, of course, down last 2 years, and then some people thinking they're getting better, and then obviously the market telling us the Brewers are the team to beat with that rotation. They got some big boppers in the lineup as well, but -180 for the sports book to hold your money all season long. I don't know if that intrigues me too much. What are your overall thoughts here at the NL Central?
Well, I think that's a pretty good breakdown right there. And if you remember late season additions that the Cardinals made last year for the postseason run, if you guys remember off the top of your head, you made me just think about that, and I didn't write them down for this segment, but I think they were the equivalent of what they added this offseason, which is, what did they do? Steven Matz, Albert Pujols, Corey Dickerson, losing Andrew Miller, and I want to mention John Lester because I have a lot of respect for John Lester, but John Lester is obviously on fumes, running on fumes at this point in time in his career. This is a team that if they didn't win 17 games, was a 17-game winning streak down the stretch last year, they probably weren't even a postseason team, and this is who they added in the offseason. Milwaukee's not, you're not going to get a big ROI on an investment with them, but they're going to outpitch everyone in this division. And all this team needs is to have maybe, a little bounce back season from some key players, but they're still never going to be a team that puts up big offensive numbers, at least not from what I see. I mean, if any of these players play to their history, even if they have 20-25% jump in some of their numbers, this team's still going to not only depend on their rotation, but they're going to depend on the bullpen. And I think what we see in this division is arguably a lot of teams who don't even care or not even try. They know they're not going to win this year. I think the Cubs are getting better. They will get better. I don't think that they're a team that's going to challenge for a postseason spot, even with the expanded, with our expanded number of teams in postseason play in Major League Baseball. So this was probably the easiest division to look at and say, what can I talk about that's going to be interesting? McCutchen, I talked about McCutchen. He's joined Milwaukee. Renfroe, right? The loss of Bradley Jr. and Brett Anderson, that means a little bit, but I think if you get anything from Christian Yelich, guys, anything extra, anything more than he has been or was last year, from his MVP 2018 season, when he finished second, and they were in 2019 as well. They just, I trust Craig Counsell to handle his pitching staff, to handle this roster. And this is the one team of all the teams, and I'm including it with the Dodgers. This is the one team I think that could run away with this division. Essentially what I'm saying is by September, the 1st of September, they're already starting to form their rotation or try to integrate whoever they picked up at the trade deadline for postseason play. That's how much I like Milwaukee here, and I think they're probably a play on in the futures for this division. Even though, as you said, Drew, there's not a big ROI. A quick glance of other teams, Pittsburgh Pirates. They look like they've done anything that intrigues you. The things that they've added Roberto Perez, which is a pretty shallow position, right? But they lost Stallings, if I'm not mistaken, too. So I like Cabrain Hayes. How do you pronounce it? Cabrain Hayes or Cabrain as a talented star, but outfielder Brian Reynolds is already showing what he can do, what in his numbers too. So listen, Reynolds has said he'd like to stay in Pittsburgh long term, which is a surprise as well. Maybe he's the guy that can build around and start moving forward, but they just don't excite me as well. I mean, there's nothing in this division. If I was a fan of the Cubs, I would be looking at some of the young players and hope they bring them up. If I'm a Pittsburgh fan, I don't see much to get excited about. Certainly Cincinnati was a play. This is the one future. I've made one future all year, all summer. Or I'm going to be rooting one for all summer. And that's Cincinnati under. It's almost like they're trying to lose. Now they've picked up a few players that people are excited about, and people have argued with me that's going to improve this team. But in this division, it's all Milwaukee, and it's Milwaukee. It's all about, it's just like real estate. If you're not on Milwaukee or you don't believe in Milwaukee, then you're probably not paying attention.
All right. Yeah, it shows there, guys, in the futures, minus 180 to win it. We got the Cardinals plus 225. Plus 2.25 here, Trig, on the Redbirds. I'm not a huge futures bettor. I would actually probably, I have circled here, I haven't fired away the St. Louis Cardinals 83.5, looking towards the over. Just their lineup with Aaron Nolanado in there, Goldschmidt as well. They got some bats, and plus their starting rotation with Wainwright and Mikolas at the top anyway look pretty good. What's your overall thoughts here, man? You think the Cardinals got a shot to knock off the Brewers at the top of the division when it's all said and done, or hey, maybe another one of these long shots in the Cubs, Reds, Pirates?
So I tend to agree with Tony in his take on the Brewers. It feels like they could really run away with this division. And, you're not right. The ROI of laying 180 to bet a division winner is not great. But I don't know that I'd really go against that here. I think if I was going to take a shot with a team, it would probably be in a different division. Brewers, their starting pitching is, their top 2 or 3 starters, as good as any as you're going to find. They have a great bullpen. And like Tony said, if Yelich has a bounce back year, I mean, they're going to be right up there with one of the best teams in the National League. So I'm certainly not trying to oppose the Brewers. And Drew, honestly, the Cardinals are going to probably be a fade for me. If they don't rattle off 17 straight wins, they were a 500 team before that happened. And I don't think they got better this offseason. I think that their pitching is suspect. They have a new manager. I just don't see how that translates into like a banner year for the Cardinals. When you get down the ladder in this division, now I don't know that the Reds. I don't know that I agree with the Reds being a fade. Like they definitely got rid of some big names, but they were able to sell high on most of those guys. And the Reds were a team that was kind of like the sharp market hammered them the past couple of years on futures. They were like this team that everyone very team that was played a lot in like win the NL Central, season win totals and stuff like that. And now it seems like no one wants any part of the Reds. I don't necessarily think rebuild always is like this bad thing where you're going to lose a bunch of games. That win total actually seems a little bit low to me. Now, I can't if what Tony's saying, I mean, they are clearly rebuilding, and that could translate into just a complete like throwaway season. But I don't know. I still think that there might be some value backing the Reds day to day, that they might be a little bit better than they're getting credit for. And I actually think if there was a team that was going to surprise in this division, it would probably be the Cubs. I go back to like last year, 71 and 91, but they lost a lot of one-run games. They were 82 and 80 against the +1.5 line. And their rebuild seems a little bit ahead of schedule, in my opinion. Seiya Suzuki, I think, is the gentleman they brought over from Japan. Could make an instant impact for them. They add Marcus Stroman, so I don't know that I see the Cubs challenging for the division here, but I could see them being more ahead of schedule in their rebuild. Pittsburgh, I don't think anyone is expecting anything from the Pirates, but they were actually a good +1.5 proposition as well last year. Like 77 and 85 against the number last year. Obviously, most of those were as an underdog, and it's really a complete rebuild. Brian Hayes is awesome. It'll really come down to what their youngsters can do. But I would say Pittsburgh can only overachieve, in my opinion, because they have literally, they're set at the basement right now. So I don't think you're going to find much value fading them. I think there could be some value playing them against. If you're going to get a +1.5 with them and they're actually competitive, you might cash some tickets that way, especially early in the season when, they're everyone's ready to go. Everyone's 0-0 and thinks they can win in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and Trig, you bring up bringing over players from the Asian leagues, really from Japan, I believe you said, and also some from KBO. You'd be kind of the perfect person to ask, you and Tokyo Brandon. By the way, guys, doing a show, about KBO there. How do you kind of handicap that? If a guy has a lot of success in Japan and he comes over, because sometimes they've carried it over to great careers, all-star seasons in MLB, and sometimes it really doesn't pan out for them. Is there any kind of rhyme or reason why some guys have success making the jump and some don't?
To be honest, Drew, I don't think so. I think a lot of it has to do with the scenario that they're brought into. So it's really going to be a case-by-case basis. But one thing I did want to point out, the Cardinals lose Kwang-Hyun Kim, who's back in Korea in the KBO. He was pretty productive for them last year as a pitcher, which just kind of speaks to, I would have the Cardinals. I would fade their season win total. I think their season win total goes under. They're not a team that I don't think they're going to challenge Milwaukee. I think in this division, I think it's either going to be a team coming out of nowhere like the Reds or the Cubs, or Milwaukee's just going to run away with it like Tony said. But to answer the question, I think Japan probably translates a little bit more to the majors. That's clearly the second best league in the world. KBO is a little bit of a step down. But again, it's probably the scenario that they're in. I think it helps Suzuki in this case being sort of part of a rebuild. The expectations aren't there, because I think that's really where we've seen maybe some of the international players struggle, is with like massive expectations. I don't know that there's huge expectations surrounding Suzuki as much as he's just a piece they're bringing in to try to help rebuild a Cubs team that's really kind of struggled the last couple of years. But I like what they're doing. I think Chicago could be a team that might be a little bit of a play on. And we've seen the Cubs sort of successfully out of nowhere rebuild to the point where they won a championship, 5 years ago. That crew was like a result of a complete rebuild in Chicago. And they ended up sort of emerging with Rizzo, Baez, Chris Bryant, that whole crew. So who knows? Maybe they can do it again, and this is the start of it. We'll see.
He's Adam Trigger on Twitter at TopFlightSI. Some refer to as Korean Adam, say it as a joke though. 2021 KBO, 41-28. He was just under 60% for a pretty nice ROI. Guys, check him out at WagerTalk.com. There's also a special out there. Buy his MLB package. Get his KBO, the Korean Baseball Organization, for free. So a great deal there. WagerTalk.com. Also a lot of free plays up, guys. At WagerTalk, we got a season win total free plays up from a bunch of handicappers right now. And 5% plays out. We got opening day tomorrow and Friday. If you guys have seen, it's kind of like, I guess half the teams playing Thursday, half the teams playing Friday. And some of the games actually got postponed on Thursday due to weather. I think the Yankees, the Twins being two of those now on Friday. So Friday becoming a bigger day, but still opening day. I guess we can count it both Thursday and Friday. So we got one more division here in the National League. Adam, coming back to you first. We got the futures here with the Dodgers, minus 225 to win the division. Of course, they didn't win the division last season. That would be the San Francisco Giants with an MLB high 107 wins. Now you can get them plus 550 to win the division. You don't usually see that from year to year. So kind of interesting twist here in the NL West futures. Padres plus 340. We got the Rocks 75 to 1 there, a mile high. And then the D-backs, wow, 150 to 1. You don't see that much. Not sure if it's worth a shot here, Adam, or maybe just kind of give the money to the nice homeless man that lives near you. I'm not really sure what to do with that. You don't see 150 to 1 very often, but that is the D-backs. But hey, Dodgers minus 225 at the top. What are your overall thoughts here, NL West, Adam?
Yeah, well, we'll start with the Dodgers because I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this team. We know the Dodgers are really good. We know they went out and made moves in the offseason. I'm not going to lay minus 225 on them to win the division. And to be perfectly honest, I still think there's enough question marks surrounding this team where I don't know that I want to just come out and fire these like inflated, short, I guess we'll call them short prices, win the division, win the NL, win the World Series. We know that the playoffs can be a little bit of a crapshoot, as we saw last year. What team is playing the best at the right time? So there's no doubt that the Dodgers are good. I did find it interesting against, I wouldn't just come out and like lay the 1.5 constantly with the Dodgers because they were actually a 500 team against the number last year, which would be the 1.5 run line. So I'm not going to come out and fade the Dodgers, but I don't know that I'm very high on them from a value perspective. One team I will look to fade, Drew, is the San Francisco Giants, because I think they're going to take the biggest step back of any team this year. That 107 wins was out of control last year. They had pretty much every player on the roster had a career year, in my opinion. Everyone exceeded expectations. And I look at what they did in the offseason, like Matthew Boyd, Carlos Rodon, Alex Cobb. I mean, all of these guys like could potentially be good, but Rodon kind of came out of nowhere to resurrect his career in Chicago, and they lose Kevin Gausman, who was one of their best pitchers last year. I think the Giants take a big step back. I actually like the season win total under. Their lineup their lineup's getting older, and I just don't see how all of those guys replicate what they did last year. I think that was just a really special season for San Francisco where everything went right, and I just have to expect some regression there. As far as the rest of the division, the Rockies, managed to somehow lose Trevor Story and get worse. Think they made a mistake. Think they should have traded him instead of getting basically nothing for him. They bring in Chris Bryant. But still, I just don't think this team got better. They were 13 games under, 74 and 87 last year. I'd imagine they'll be right around the same. I don't think that we're going to see much of an improvement. I think they're going to be right around the same. The Diamondbacks, 52 and 110. What I'll say about this team is they can't get worse. That was a complete disaster last year. I don't think they really improved their team all that much, but they were 80 and 82 against the run line last year. And they lost a ton of close games. Now, the reason they lost a lot of close games was because they blew a lot of leads with that horrible bullpen. And that's why they managed to lose a lot of games by 1 run, because they actually led and then choked the lead away, lost on a walk-off or by 1 run. With that all being said, season win total 67.5. Can they improve that much? I'm not sure, but against the number, they might be a good bet. Against the plus 1.5, they might be a good bet again, because I don't really think they got worse. If anything, they probably are a little bit better just based on variance. And then the Padres, they're a team. I actually think they're the team that could steal this. If someone's going to steal this division from the Dodgers, it's going to be the Padres. Obviously, they've got the whole Tatis thing, but they bring in Sean Manaea, and they've got the pitching. And I think that they just fell off a cliff toward the end of last year. They'll have a chance to resurrect that. So if you want to talk about, I don't really consider them a sleeper, but if a team's going to knock out the Dodgers in this division, I think it's going to be San Diego. And I think there could be some daily value taking the Diamondbacks on the plus 1.5 line. I think they'll be a little bit better than last year. They'll play some close games, and the Giants, without a doubt, are a fade for me in the West this year.
Interesting take there on the Diamondbacks. You bring up the point, blowing leads, and that, of course, kind of coincides with them being 90 and 67 to the over. They were a huge over trender last year with a lot of late runs being scored there, Trig. Also, 55 games behind the San Francisco Giants? I don't know that I've seen that, at least in quite some time, with one team so far behind. I mean, they were more than 20 games behind the Rockies in 4th place. That's how far they were down. The market's telling us, we had the graphic there, 66.5 for their season win total. Some sports books are 67.5 for the Diamondbacks. You usually don't see teams this low in the standings with that big of a jump. They only had 52 wins last season. So that's 17 games, something of that nature, 16 anyway. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the Diamondbacks get there. I like them to the under. I actually wrote it up on my page, guys, Drew Martin at WagerTalk.com. So check that out for detailed written analysis on the Diamondbacks season win total. Tony, interested in your thoughts here. National League West, possibly, I guess, maybe in the running for the best division in baseball. But overall, it should be a fun one to watch, and likely the Dodgers at the top. What are you thinking here in the West?
They're the best division in the National League of the West. I still think the AL East is the best division in baseball. I mean, I think that division is crazy good, and I'm one that have already written off Tampa Bay, and most people are, as soon as I say that, they scream at the top of their lungs and say, how can you write off Tampa Bay? What they do every year, what they've done. And we won't go there. We're talking about the Dodgers and their additions, the Freddie Freemans, the Craig Kimballs, the Kevin Pillars, the Daniel Hudsons, maybe even Andrew Haney's, right? And they lose Seager, Corey. They lose Scherzer, obviously, and I don't think it's a loss. Really, I think if there's a reason the Dodgers don't win, pardon me, if there's a reason the Dodgers don't win this division, it would be a enormously gross amount of injuries. And even then, I'm not certain you can prevent them from winning this division. And really, their biggest hurdle is Dave Roberts. I spoke to it all last season. And when I do the show with Gabe Morency, if you guys know, he's a huge Dodger fan. But he always looks forward to me coming on Friday because I'm going to dog the Dodgers. I'm going to dog Dave Roberts. And I thought Dave Roberts, I know a guy really close and connected to the Dodgers organization. And he believes that this was going to be a contract year for Roberts, and I believe something happened. Didn't he get an extension? I think he got an extension on this offseason. But he thought that Dave Roberts would be offered a job in the front office and they would bring somebody in after this year. Not too many people have had the talent Dave Roberts had with the Dodgers over his years, and would consider what he's done exceptional. Let's just leave it at that, right? This is a team that's going to have to suffer a lot of injuries, more than they did last year, and I agree with Trick too. I mean, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say if I'm Gabe Kapler, if I'm the little guy on Gabe Kapler's left shoulder, and and I'm fighting with the guy on the right side, had the Giants defeated the Dodgers in the playoffs last year, I would have probably put a gun to Gabe Kapler and said, listen, you have to retire because there's nowhere to go but down. And that may still be the case even if he didn't beat the Dodgers. I mean, he did himself no favors with last year's production other than to put him up on a pedestal that he's going to be knocked down. I think Trigger said it right, that they if you look at some of the numbers historically for the players that he had and what they did last season, it's going to be tough to repeat that. I think Rodon's a good addition. Jock Peterson, I think, adds a lot to the lineup for a lot of reasons, only because he's in the same division with the Dodgers and what he can bring there. And I'm not saying he's going to bring all the secrets, but I think it's a plus. I mean, losing Posey was a great play. I mean, he's been a great player for a long time. What he did last year, Chris Bryant, Kevin Gausman, all gone, right? 107-win season, guys. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with the expanded playoffs, though. This team's still good enough. I like Gabe Kapler a lot, and I'll scream top of my lungs that he could be a top 5 manager last year and even be better this year as far as my list goes. San Diego, a lot to overcome, guys. Is Luke Voigt, is Jorge Alfaro, a loss of Melancon. What does that do with the Padres? This is really all about Musgrove, Darvish, Snell. All those guys made them better last year. All those guys also made life miserable in San Diego with the injuries and such. So Fernando Tatis sustaining that motorcycle accident. Here we go, right? He's not going to be playing till when? What's the number on that? I mean, there's some saying June, some are saying July, whatever the case may be. They're going to have to scratch and claw and stay, play a little bit above 500 until he returns. Because when he's in the lineup, really, San Diego can beat anybody. When he's not in that lineup, I just don't think they can beat anybody. That's how I think that's where I put Tatis Jr. on that list. Now, the rest of this division, Colorado Rockies, you get rid of Story, Tapia, Gray's gone. Your additions, obviously, Chris Bryant makes this team intriguing at the box office, but does it make them better? I mean, this rotation for Colorado, no matter what anyone says, and I have some friends who play the futures over on Colorado. I'm not going to telling you who they are. They're friends you guys know even, but their initials are. I won't even go there. They can't pitch. This team cannot pitch, and they're going to have to hit their way out of this paper sack that they're in again this year. That's my opinion. 74 and 87, I thought was an absolute stellar season. If you look at that Rockies lineup, 74 wins, stellar. And San Francisco not winning as many games. Can they repeat that 74 and 87? Maybe they might be able to repeat it. Why? Because the Arizona Diamondbacks in the offseason were already planning for the trade deadline. If you agree with me on this, and that is, why do you pick up a Mark Melancon? And why do you pick up an Ian Kennedy, a fly ball pitcher? Listen, why you sign that? And they did do themselves a favor by getting rid of Soria, who has been, giving up home runs for 3 or 4 years now. I mean, he just is done. He's been done almost 2 or 3 years after he left Kansas City. But Ketel Marte, great baseball player, guys, great baseball player, but he cannot care. This team picked up Melancon and Kennedy, planning to place them, to bolster this team come July, because they're both going to be on the blocks and off somewhere, and Arizona is going to get some. They're going to get some prospects or somebody that's going to be able to help them in the next couple of years get better. Because I agree with you, Drew. I mean, I think if this team wins 52 games, they're lucky. I really believe that wholeheartedly. Even with San Francisco being down a little bit and San Diego not having Tatis Jr., it's all Dodgers. The rest of these teams are looking to finish second, or at least San Diego and San Fran is, and win enough to get in that 12-team field come postseason time. Right? That's it. This division, I spent way too much time already on it. Really, believe me. The Dodgers' Achilles is Dave Roberts, and the rest will be history here in about 6 months, 7 months.
Good stuff, Tony. Interested in that Rockies thing, what you're saying, initials and all, but we got a lot of people in the chat box here. Jim, Cameron, all you guys, welcome in. Keegan as well. Jeff, Coin in the house. Leg Show Magazine saying he's got an opening day money line parlay on the Mets and the Angels at plus 224. Buck in the house as well. A lot of VIPs in here. Jack Hand, all of you guys, welcome in. Real Deal Prime, Jeffrey Moore. Some guys throwing out different, like Coin saying Rock should improve in the West. Gomber, Marquez, Freeland, decent arms. The DH will help that team. And Tony, to your point, talking to the people around town, it's something that I thought about too. With the DH coming to the NL, it's going to affect different teams differently. What I was looking for were NL teams like the Dodgers that have a lot of big bats, big names to get into that lineup. They're actually going to benefit from it more. I would think the Rockies, a mile high there, if they plan this right out, they might benefit from it as well. It's the teams that, are kind of throwing out AAA lineups where those teams are even going to be more up against it. That's why I kind of like the Diamondbacks under. But hey, maybe there's something to this Rockies and the over, Tony. I mean, of the people you were talking to, I guess you're not going to say the names, but is that the profile of bet? Is that the reason why they were betting on the over?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Listen, their argument, and at least their what's the word for it? I mean, their whim
analysis
is that this team is going to hit the heck out of the ball, and that they can hit the heck out of the ball. They have some young players even they can bring up, but that, with guys like Charlie Blackmon and Bryant and at Coors Field with a DH, they'll hit their way to a better season than they had last year. Well, they better hit the heck out of the ball, man, because I'm telling you, I just don't have much faith in this pitching staff at all to help this team win games. They may help this team not be embarrassed, but I know I'm getting a little bit. I'm stepping out, but that is how I feel about letting Trevor Story go, and it's the equivalent. What's the equivalent of letting Trevor Story go? Now, this may be a really a stretch, but it would be like letting Dustin Pedroia go or Derek Jeter go. That's who Trevor Story has been to this franchise, in my opinion.
Okay, well, good stuff, Tony. And Trig, I guess the Rocks 74 and 87, big home road splits. I mean, every year the Rockies have big home road splits. I don't remember them this big though. 48 and 33 at home last year, and 26 and 54 on the road. So a really good team at home, really bad team on the road. They were plus money on the season, up 4 units. Did you have anything real quick on the Rockies in your betting profile for them?
No, in general, I think they overachieved last year. Like Tony said, they really were projected to win far less than 74 games last year, and they had kind of a great season. So I think they could have another good year this year, but I still think that puts them in the 75 to 80 win range. Like, I think a really good season for the Rockies would put them maybe like a shade under 500. The offense should be fine. In Coors Field, of course, we know they can hit, but I agree with Tony. I have question marks about the pitching staff. So from a value perspective, they're probably priced up a little bit based on what they did last year. I don't know that I have like a huge take on that team either way. But I could see it. I could see the Rockies flirting with 500. I just don't think we're going to get I don't think they have the pitching to have like the breakout. You know how every year, like there's one team that kind of comes from complete nothingness to break out and make the playoffs. You could say the Giants were that team last year, right? Their season win total last year was, I think the Diamondbacks and the Giants had the same season win total last year. It was like 74.5 or 75. One won 50 games and one won 107 games. So, the Giants were that team last year. I don't know that it's going to be the Rockies this year. Someone will do it. One of these teams will come out and just go nuts and have a year. But for me, I don't think the Rockies have the pitching to do that.
Okay, we got Jack Hand in the chat box with the comment of the show. It would be like letting Nolan Arenado go, Tony. So
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
Jack and Jim also chiming in. He was looking towards John Means to win the Cy Young. Actually, Trig, I'll throw it over to you guys. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. He's got his KBO and MLB. If you buy MLB, you get KBO for free. Of course, KBO last season, 41-28. That's just under 60%. So check him out at WagerTalk.com. Free plays up and available. Trig, whatever you got there. Also, best bet if you have one, and final thoughts for the show, bud.
Yeah, so I don't really have like a best bet. I don't do a ton with futures, but just for the sake of like a best bet for the show, I can't stress it enough. I think the Giants are a fade. And I think if you're looking for a season win total, Giants under whatever season win total number that's posted at your site is probably fine. I see them taking a massive step back this year. I don't think they'll be the first best team or the second best team in the West. I think someone will hurdle them. I have both the Dodgers and the Padres higher. And actually, just to tie this back in, wouldn't be that surprised if the Rockies finished ahead of them as well. I'm just not high on the San Francisco Giants this year. I will have plays for opening day. I'll probably have them up on my page either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. So visit me on Twitter at TopFlightSI. I give a bunch of stuff out for free. I'll be posting opening day plays there. And yeah, Giants season win total under, I think is a pretty good bet. If you want to make a season win total bet, I don't think you can go wrong with that one.
All right, seeing it 85 at the Westgate in Las Vegas. So, yeah, that's Adam Trigger. We also got Tony Finn along for the ride. Maybe Tony, Tijuana Tony, known by some here. But he knows his baseball, guys. #1 MLB profits all time at WagerTalk.com. Tony, throw it over to you for final thoughts of the show and a best bet if you got one.
I would say that this is going to be a fun season, guys. So we get to start much sooner than I thought we were going to get to start, and we're going to play full season. The thoughts I have are with the shortened spring training. We've been through this, haven't we, guys? Be careful because there's going to be some injuries to pitchers in particular this year. They're going to be frustrating for the team. It's going to be frustrating for fans. It's going to be really frustrating for future players because we should have known. Let's look at the history. Let's look at what happened last year. It's just inevitable unless you have a full spring. Even when you have a full spring of training, how it happens, I'm not going to even go there because it's not like baseball players are out there putting their pads on and busting chops, but it just happens. Stretch the laws of human physics, of human body's physics, especially with pitchers. In short, Toronto is interesting. How deep, how talented. We didn't talk AL. That was yesterday, but there's a lot of question marks around this team that hasn't really played at home in that stadium, for a couple of years now. They've been where? In Buffalo. They've been in Florida. How are those numbers going to translate? Some people said, don't worry about it. They're going to be who they are. They're talented up and down the line. Got a better rotation they've had in years and years, and it's really going to take some injuries or maybe some of the youth on that team to falter for them not to win that AL East. However, I think there's some question marks. How about the vaccine? How about what kind of controversy? How's that going to affect that when teams go up into Canada, unless they change the vaccine laws or rules, right? They could be facing teams with holes because of some of the players that refuse to get vaccinated. A lot of different things, a lot of moving parts, guys. A lot of subplots, dramatic subplots, I think, in the season, which always comes along with Major League Baseball. And that my play would be, don't be afraid to play this Milwaukee. I really cannot find. There's a couple of things, guys. A couple of things really quick, and that is the Milwaukee Brewers. The ROI is not very much, but guess what? The Diamondbacks, if you want to lay some juice, you want to lay some money to make some money, guaranteed maybe 10, 12% ROI is that the Diamondbacks don't make the playoffs. You can find that prop and that future. I think it's minus 10,000, but they're not making the playoffs. It's free money. Okay, depends on how much money you have laying around, and if you can make more money than that on that money over 6 months, then do that. But they're not making the playoffs, and Toronto's a question mark, and I like the Milwaukee Brewers to win that division as well. ROI is not much, but I think it's free money.
Maybe a hedge against an inflation or something of that nature. So for Tony Finn, Adam Trigger, I am Drew Martin. Guys, that does it for the previews. Tomorrow, opening day game breakdowns. Come back and join us right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. If you're liking the content, please smash that like button. And if you're watching on replay, feel free to drop a comment below in the reply section. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Best of luck with your bets. We'll talk tomorrow.
Baseball is back, and we want to celebrate by slashing the cost of any daily picks packages. That includes a baseball play by 50%, including 5% best bets. This amazing promotion runs from Thursday, April 7th, when 18 of the 30 MLB teams take part in opening day, to midnight on Wednesday, April 13th, and you can get $25 daily packages for $12.50, $29 daily combo packages for $14.50, $35 5% best bets for $17.50, and $39 5% best bet combo packages for $19.50. Whether you never bet on MLB or just like discounts, save 50% on baseball picks for the entire first week of the baseball regular season.